Hello, everyone. I'm back today to tell you again the story of Zlateh the Goat. Zlateh the Goat is a story by Isaac Bashevis Singer, the famous Jewish writer. It appears in his book by the same name, also in his collection of Hanukkah stories, in his collection of children's stories, and wherever you look, you'll find Zlateh the Goat. Sometimes my tongue gets tied and I don't say the name properly, Zlateh. And I figured out that if you say to yourself, it's a lot of, you know, when you have a lot of something, it's a lot of. And then you slur it, it's slada, it's a slada. And then you drop the first sound and then you have Zlateh. So whenever my tongue gets tied, I think it's a lotta, slada, Zlateh. Yes, I got it. Zlateh the Goat. This story is set in Poland way back, I don't know, 100, 150 years ago, 200 years ago, when my grandparents, my great-grandparents, my great-great-parents lived in a little shtetl, a little Jewish village in Poland. And the story takes place in Hanukkah time, in December, but I'm getting ahead of the story. Let me first play for you some music that we all get in the right mood to be in a shtetl in rural Poland 100 to 200 years ago. Now, some of you have heard this story already because I told it last week. And so now you can pay attention to how you feel about this story. How you feel about the poor Jewish family that doesn't have enough money to celebrate Hanukkah. How you feel about Father's decision to send the beloved goat Zlateh to the butcher to get some money. Feel about Aaron when he's caught in the blizzard and he's freezing cold. And when he can't see the road anymore and he's lost, he can neither go home nor go to the town, to the butcher's. And think how he feels, how wonderful he feels when he finds the haystack covered with snow. And how wonderful Zlateh feels when it can eat, when she can eat as much hay as she wants. And how wonderful it is for Aaron when he can drink Zlateh's warm milk. And how wonderful it is when they come out after the blizzard. They find their way home and are welcomed back to their family, and they celebrate Hanukkah like they never celebrated before. But let's have the story. Once upon a time, there was a Jewish family that lived in a little village in Poland. The father, Reuben, was a furrier. What's a furrier? You never heard about a furrier? Maybe you know about fur. Fur is the hair of animals. And a furrier makes fur coats, fur hats, and fur scarves. Look, here's an example. Look at this beautiful fur coat. Oh, maybe it's from a mink, or maybe it's from a beaver, or I don't know, it's from a furry animal. And oh, is that coat warm. It's also expensive. makes coats like this. Here's another kind of fur coat. You know the wool of sheep is a kind of fur. And this is wool from a sheep that has a brown wool. A wonderful wool coat to keep you or me or your friend warm in the winter. But you know, there was a problem. December was extremely mild, unbelievably warm. The grass was growing green, and the farmers were putting out their cows and their sheep and their goats to eat the beautiful green grass, and they were still bringing in vegetables. The harvest seemed to go on forever. But this was not good for a furrier. No one would buy Reuben's coats, and he and his wife Leah and their 3 children, Aaron the boy, 12 years old, and his 2 little sisters, Leah's the mother, Miriam and Anna. They didn't have too much extra money in their pockets. And Reuben didn't know how they would get everything together to celebrate Hanukkah, the Jewish festival of lights, of joy, of celebration, of giving gifts, and so on and so forth, eating delicious potato pancakes, latkes fried so crispy. How would they celebrate? You need money for candles. You need money for oil and potatoes and maybe an onion to make the latkes. You need money to give as Hanukkah gelt, coins so the children can play dreidel, play with their wonderful tops. Over here is all the wonderful things you need for a Hanukkah celebration. Oil, dreidels, potatoes, a potato grater, and a menorah with candles. They couldn't afford it. What were they to do? They had an old goat. It's a nanny goat. That means it's a she-goat. It's a girl goat, but an old mama goat. She didn't give so much milk. In fact, they called her now and then, or then and now. Sometimes maybe a little bit. What was to do? Aaron could take Zlateh to the town, and there the butcher, Camphill, would pay 5 golden coins. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He'd pay 5 golden coins, and the family would have money enough and even more to celebrate Hanukkah. Oh, but the whole family was very sad about this decision. Zlateh was practically a family member. She'd been with them as long as Aaron. She was 12 and Aaron was 12. And ever since the family came about, Zlateh was part of the family. The girls went to their room and cried, and Mother wept right there in the kitchen. But Aaron kept a stiff upper lip. He didn't let on how sad he was. Children are to obey their parents. So Aaron took a rope and put it around Zlateh's neck so he could lead her to town to Camphill, the butcher. Oh, Zlateh trusted Aaron. She trusted all human beings. They were always good to her. They always gave her food. They gave her a warm place to be when it was cold. She was devoted to Aaron and his whole family. Now Aaron has to get dressed for the weather. Well, it's not so cold out there. So he's going to get his quilted coat and a woolen cap without any ear flaps. Who needs ear flaps when December is so mild? Here we go. We'll put on the coat. Here we go. Now we're ready to go. Well, come on, Zlateh. Come on, we're going to town. And Zlateh walked along with Aaron, as trusting as could be. But she never walked the road to town. Everything was new and strange. New fields, new people, new dogs barking at her. But she didn't mind. She trusted that Aaron would take good care of her. But suddenly, everything changed. The wind came up. Whoosh, 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 it was blowing, and the sky filled up with clouds and got ever darker. Black, black, black clouds with a deep, deep purple. Oh, frightening clouds. And then the rain started to come, pelting down, hard and wet and cold. And it turned into hail, ice balls, not so little, not like peas, not like marbles, like golf balls. Boom, boom, boom. Ooh, ooh, as the hailstones came down on them. And then the hail turned to proper snow. And it came down so heavy, the ground was covered in just a moment. And Aaron couldn't see the road to town anymore. And he couldn't distinguish the road from the fields, from anywhere. He got disorientated. He couldn't follow the sun. He didn't know his way. He didn't know where he was. He was lost. And the temperature dropped. Oh, it was cold. His little quilted coat wasn't quite enough. And oh, how he wished he had flaps to pull down over his ears. Oh, and his hands were getting numb. He hadn't taken his gloves or mittens. He had no scarf. His toes, although he was wearing his boots, they were cold and he could hardly move his fingers. They were getting frozen and his nose felt quite wooden. And Zlateh, she was afraid too. She, in all her 12 years, had never seen a blizzard like this. And she started to call out, "Meh, meh. Aaron, why have you taken me here? Where have you taken me to freeze and perish? Meh, meh." And the storm continued, and the wind blew, and the snow came down harder and harder and harder. It was up halfway to Aaron's knees, and then it was up to Aaron's knees, and he could hardly walk through the snow. And Zlateh didn't want to walk at all. She just stood still. And Aaron was beside himself, and he looked up to heaven, and he said a prayer to his God. "Dear God, please don't let me perish. Please don't let me die in this storm. Oh, and please take care of Zlateh. She is just one of your innocent creatures." And then Aaron looked up and he looked around. And he saw something big and something white way in the distance, up over the rise, further up in the field, and he went to it. Oh my goodness, do you know what it is? Oh, it's a haystack covered with snow, And he brought Zlateh along. Come on, Zlateh, let's go. I show you the haystack. I'm sure we can go into it. Oh, and now he took his stick. Oh, he took his stick and he poked in the haystack. He poked through the snow, and there was the wonderful, sweet-smelling hay. Aaron knew that you could crawl in a haystack. You could make a hut for yourself. And there you could keep warm during the snowstorm. Oh, and Zlateh was so happy. She could eat from the floor of the haystack. She could eat from the roof of the haystack, from the sides of the haystack, this way and that way. It was paradise for a goat who likes to eat hay. And she said again, "Meh, meh. Thank you, Aaron. Thank you for bringing me to such a wonderful place." And Aaron came into the haystack and got settled. And he realized he was quite hungry. He hadn't had his lunch yet. Now his mother had packed him. He had it in one of his pockets here. 2 pieces of bread and a thick piece of cheese. And so he ate his food. And when he was done, he was still hungry because he had asserted himself so much against the snow and the storm, and he had had such a panic and such a worry. And look, Zlateh's udder was full. She was full of milk. It was milking time in the haystack. Aaron crawled under Zlateh. Zlateh had never been milked in such a way before, but she smiled and said, "Meh, meh. You're welcome, Aaron." And he squeezed on the udder, and the warm, nourishing milk went right into his mouth. Oh, like a wonderful milkshake. And so the 2 of them settled down for the night. Aaron took his stick and poked an air hole, a little window in the haystack, so they could get a continuous stream of fresh air. And then soon they were both asleep. Oh, how Aaron dreamed. First he dreamed that there had always been snow. There was never anything but snow. He had no family. There was no village to go to. There was just snow. And he and Zlateh were snow children. They had been born out of the snow, and they lived in the snow, and they would spend all their days surrounded by snow. And then he had another dream. Oh, he dreamed of summer. That was the favorite thing. It was warm. He could go swimming in the lake. He could pick berries. The harvest was coming in, fresh vegetables for all, beautiful flowers in the meadow, birds singing, bunnies hopping. Oh, how he dreamed of that. And when they were awake, Zlateh ate hay, and Aaron drank milk. And Aaron told Zlateh many stories, the ones I've just told you from his dreams, and many more that he told his beloved goat. And she perked up her ears, and after the story she always said, "Meh, meh." Thank you, dear Aaron, for telling the story. And so it was, for 1 day and night, for 2 days and 2 nights, for 3 days and 3 nights. This way. 3 days and 3 nights, the storm raged. After the first day, it was not as loud and not as fierce, but the snow kept coming down and down and down deeper and deeper. And into the evening of the third night, it suddenly got very, very quiet outside. Very, very peaceful. And Aaron took his stick and he poked open the door to their haystack. And he came out. Everything was still. The blizzard was over. And everything was a snow-white splendor. Everything sparkled. Everything looked glorious, magnificent, like starlight, like crystal light. A splendor from heaven. You couldn't make out anything but ripples of snow. Here it was higher, here it was lower, here it was very high. Here there was a round wave where the wind has blown, and that's all he could see. He knew he shouldn't try to go home in the middle of the night having no idea where he was. He just enjoyed the heavenly splendor of the beautiful, beautiful snow. Now morning came, and it was time to get up, and Zlateh was up. What are we going to do today? Are we going home? Where? Let's go, Aaron, let's go. Why wait? And the two of them came out of the haystack and looked around. And down there, they could see a driver, not driving a wagon. He was driving a sled, a big sleigh drawn by horses, because everything was covered with snow. And there were bells ringing around the horse's neck, sleigh bells, like jingle bells. They were ringing, and Aaron was cheered, and he ran through the deep, deep snow with Zlateh as fast as they could, and they caught up with the driver, and the driver of the sleigh pointed the way back to the village, the way back to Aaron's family. Aaron never thought of going to town, never thought of going to the butcher, because he and Zlateh now were really like brother and sister, like one family, like one being. And when they came to the village, first the neighbors and friends saw him, and they went to Aaron's family and said, Aaron is back, Zlateh is back, they are saved. And father and mother, Reuben and Leah, the sisters, Anna and Miriam, they all came to greet them. And you never saw so much hugging and so much kissing. Aaron, Zlateh, they were both well and alive. Zlateh was brought back to the house. They never talked again about sending her to the butcher. Camphill the butcher was just like a bad dream. She had a pen outside the house, but she was always allowed to come into the kitchen. And now that the weather had turned cold and there was a proper bitter winter, how the fur coats sold. Oh, it was many, many, many coins that brought home for this coat and the other. And the family had plenty of money to buy everything they needed for Hanukkah and a lot more. And Camphill was forgotten, and Zlateh was loved. And Zlateh was part of the family, and she came into the kitchen every day during Hanukkah to eat some potato pancakes. And she sang with the family a wonderful Hanukkah song, Meh, meh, O Hanukkah, O Hanukkah. into our springtime. We carry the joyful memory of Hanukkah and how a goat and a boy lived through the most terrible blizzard there ever was. And love between them grew and grew. Bye-bye. I'll see you again soon.